watching Fugitive Red Eye, and today I'll be talking about my top 4 favorite dramedies. The reason it's only 4 is because I could only think of 4 right off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are great other ones out there. If you don't know what a dramedy is, it's pretty self-explanatory with the title. It is a drama comedy. So if you don't know what a dramedy is, like I said, it's literally just a drama comedy. A lot of the times they'll start out as just straight-up comedies and become dramas more progressively as they go on. The idea for this video was suggested to me by Rabid Waffles, so you have him to thank for that. And without further ado, let's get into this. Number 4, Red vs. Blue. Red vs. Blue probably has the most gradual transformation into a dramedy out of all the rest of them on this list. The first 5 seasons were nothing but straight-up comedy, and it's still wonderful. Then seasons 6 through 8 were primarily action-based, whereas seasons 9 and 10 is where it became drama. If you're unfamiliar with Red vs. Blue, it's a machinima series that takes place in the Halo universe, and also has a universe of its own. I absolutely love Red vs. Blue, and I would have to say season 10 is by far the pinnacle of the show. It is by far the best season so far, and probably the worst season would have to be season 14, because it was just an anthology season, and it basically just focused on random parts of the universe that were either canon or non-canon, but most of the time were irrelevant. But overall, Red vs. Blue got you attached to the characters through the comedy seasons, and then made you care for them even more with the action and plot build in seasons 6 through 8. And then it really took form around season 9, where it focused a lot more on character development, backstory, and drama, as I said. Red vs. Blue is the longest-running web series out there that there is. And it's a title I hope it keeps for some time. But I hope that it doesn't go downhill, because as I said, I did not like season 14, but season 15 so far has been promising. If you want to watch Red vs. Blue officially, there's a couple of ways you can do it. I believe it's still on Netflix and possibly Hulu. But if you don't have those, you can always watch it for free on Rooster Teeth's own website, roosterteeth.com, or you can buy the DVDs. And I highly recommend you do check Red vs. Blue out, with the exception of Season 14, as I mentioned previously, other than a couple of arcs, which I've talked about in another video in more detail. But anyway, that does it for number 4. Let's move on to number 3. Number 3, Wilfred, or more specifically, the American version of Wilfred. Wilfred is a sitcom based on an Australian sitcom of the same name. And although they do share some characteristics, they are very, very different shows. I've done a whole video dedicated to the differences between the two, so I'm not going to dwell on that too much. I'll leave a link to that in the end screen and in the description. Wilfred starts out on a dark note with the main character wanting to kill himself because he's fed up with life and feels like no one cares about him. Our main character, Ryan, by Elijah Wood, is a depressed former lawyer. And when he tries to kill himself by overdosing on a bunch of pills, he doesn't die. And the next day, he meets his neighbor's dog, which he sees differently than everyone else sees. Everyone else just sees a dog, but Ryan sees Wilfred, a man in a dog suit. Throughout this series, we watch Ryan cope with his depression and his many other mental unhealthinesses, if that's even a fucking word. And at the end of the episode, he seemingly learns a lesson that was in front of him the whole time. Each episode deals with a different component of the psyche and is titled from a different component of the psyche. It shows Ryan how to deal with guilt, happiness, etc. Not only is this show amazingly suspenseful and dramatic, but it's also hilarious. Another draw to the show is you're trying to figure out what Wilfred is. Is he Ryan's imagination? Is he an alien? Is he a demon? Is he a god? All sorts of theories come into play, and at the end of every season, there's some sort of big revelation. However, many times at the beginning of the next season, these revelations are completely undone. The only reason that this isn't higher on the list is the ending. I won't spoil too much, but just know that if you haven't seen Wilfred, you're in for a very big disappointment when you watch the final episode. There are certain elements which they say could be left open to interpretation, and if they were to do another big season, they could always undo it as they have with the previous seasons. But at this point, as it stands, the ending is shit. But otherwise, Wilfred is an amazingly solid show, and I recommend you check it out, either on Netflix or buy the DVDs or whatever. Number 2, Bojack Horseman. Out of all the things on this list, even number 1, this is by far the most depressing out of all of them. I'll explain why it's number 2 and not number 1 in a moment. Bojack Horseman is a Netflix-exclusive series about an anthropomorphic horse who lives in a world of anthropomorphic animals, who was once a big star of a sitcom, but now is a washed-out, depressed old has-been that nobody seems to like. And And although he acts like that doesn't bother him, it very much does. The first half of the first season may be slightly off-putting if you don't know what to expect, because the show does take a while to progress into full-on dramedy. For the first few episodes, it's basically just anthropomorphic horse Family Guy. Most of the jokes are cutaways and are irrelevant and things like that as well. But as you get to the second half of the first season, the show changes completely, and you get to see some of Bojack's troubled childhood, some of his inner depression, and how at the end he's really just trying to be accepted. Like I said, many of the episodes of this are very depressing and leave you wanting to see what happens next, if only to make sure that Bojack makes it out okay. But a lot of the times there is no happy ending and no resolution to the problems he's having, only more problems piled on top of them. Season 2 and up have a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, and I definitely say that's well earned. Although frankly I'm not the biggest fan of critics or even Rotten Tomatoes, but I do think they're spot on with this show. And I won't say who, as not to spoil it, but at the end of Season 3, they killed off a prominent character, and it was something I completely did not expect. And of course, as Bojack sort of drove this person to their death, he of course feels responsible, and that's where it leaves off. For a comedy, this is probably one of the most emotional shows I've ever seen, and even for just a straight-up drama, I think this does it better than some of those do. But I highly recommend you check out Bojack Horseman. As I said, it is a Netflix exclusive, and there are currently no plans to release it on DVD or Blu-ray. But let's move on to the next one. While I was editing that last segment, I thought of two more shows that would have been great to have on this list, so I decided to have them here sort of as like honorable mention sort of things. The first is the Netflix original series F is for Family. This isn't as dramatic as some of the other shows on this list, but I do think it's definitely worth mentioning. And it has a lot of heartfelt moments between the characters when they interact. Plus, I absolutely loved the ending to Season 1, and Season 2 is on the way soon, so I recommend you check it out. The other is the 5th season of Samurai Jack, and to a lesser extent the earlier seasons of Samurai Jack. There's always been comedy and drama elements in the show, but I feel the drama's been severely amped up this season. I think partially because they plan on doing it as a finale to the series, and partially because it's on Adult Swim. So, those are the honorable mentions. Let's get on to number 1. Number 1, Moral Orel. I have talked about this show a few times on this channel, but that's because I absolutely love it. Moral Orel started out as a simple satire to make fun of religious people, which as its own doesn't sound like that different of a concept. But as the series progressed, you noticed it change, particularly in Season 2, the finale. In the episode entitled Nature, Parts 1 and 2, the show takes a much darker tone as Orel's dad accidentally shoots him, and they go back home later and have to try and explain it away. Because of this, Orel has lost faith in his father and starts to question everything around him. And during the 3rd season, we see a lot of backstory to several different characters around the town that are a lot of the times very depressing and very dark. My particular favorite character is actually Clay, Orel's dad, because he's such a flawed character. His backstory is really sad, but that doesn't give him an excuse to be the asshole he is to his son and wife. Moral Orel is an absolutely fantastic show. Lots of comedy, lots of sadness, lots of drama. It's very depressing. And the ending is both happy and unhappy at the same time. As I mentioned in my previous Moral Orel video, which I will also link in the description and end screen, I do plan on doing a video explaining what I think is symbolic about the ending in Moral Orel, as well as I do still plan on doing a video ranking the individual episodes. But those ones I want to do a really good job on, so I'm taking my time developing them. I'm even scripting the one where I rank the episodes because I want to make sure I get my message across clearly. Which, if you know me, is a big thing that I don't typically do. I do not usually script my videos. I just edit out the parts where I fuck up or have a lot of blank air. Moral Orel is my number 1 favorite dramedy, and I definitely recommend everybody check it out. The series is available in its entirety on Hulu, as well as I've mentioned previously, there are Australian DVDs that have every episode on it. We get Volume 1 here in the US, but Volume 1 is by far not the best of Moral Orel. The best, I believe, is Volume 3 by far. So if you have a region-free player, or you've unlocked your player as I have, definitely I would go the DVD route so you don't have to watch it on Hulu and you don't have to be connected to the internet. Not that there's anything wrong with watching it on Hulu, because sometimes when I don't want to have to watch my DVDs, I'll watch it on there. Plus, Hulu has the Beforal Orel special, which is not included on my DVDs. But as to why this is better than Bojack Horseman, I think it's a matter of personal preference. I prefer a lot of the characters in it because everyone is flawed. I mean, Bojack Horseman has the same thing going for it, but the evolution of Moral Orel I felt was a little bit better than the evolution of Bojack Horseman, which, again, don't get me wrong, Bojack Horseman has great evolution, and in fact is more depressing than Moral Orel, I would say. But really, personal preference is what pushes it over the top for me. And let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Is there any dramedies I missed on here that you think deserve to be on this list? What's your favorite dramedy? Do you like the ones I've mentioned? Are you going to check them out now that I've mentioned them? Let me know in the comments, and you have a great rest of the day.
subscribe, the Fugitive Red Eye.